Hi, I'm Janice with Reels, and this is my presentation on the importance of Africana Studies. What is African American Studies? Africana Studies, which is another name for the Black Studies, is an interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary way to study and understand the life of African people and people who are descended from Africans around the world. During the big protest of the late 1960s and the 1970s, Black students and their friends and fans made requests on college campuses. From the beginning, the goal of African Studies was to change higher education mainly by addressing the lack of diversity among faculty and staff, changing traditions curricular that were limited. And I like to say that the program started at San Francisco College. It's now a university, and I love how this just started as a program and became so huge and became major. I think it's very interesting that our world is diversing, and it's very interesting to know that we're just diversing in as a whole society. Part two, importantly, Africana studies also became a testing ground for diverse interdisciplinary approaches that combine writing methods from the arts and social sciences. Most U.S. schools, universities now actively support these approaches as a key of higher education in the 21st century. Africana studies has taken many different methods to things like diaspora, art, culture, religion, women, gender, sexuality, health, politics, and social economic policies. Both at the University of Kansas and elsewhere, Africana Studies has shifted its focus in response to um sorry um important changes in the Black population in the United States, such as the rise of the mass incarceration after the 1970s, the rise of immigration, African Americans, the Caribbeans, and Latin Americans. The benefits of majoring in African studies is the critical thinking skills, the ability to think independently, read critically, and write analytically. Research skills, how to apply theoretically approaches to research questions, locate and interpret data, and define problems. Communication skills, writing and arguing well, public speaking, social connections, understanding and appreciating diversity, applying academic ideas to community development are related abilities. Knowledge of historical culture and political experience of African Americans, the ability appreciates the diversity of African people and African descended people in the diaspora, as I mentioned in the last slide. They recognize multi-ethnic, multicultural society in the world. I put this in one of my slides because I wanted to talk about how I didn't find any other article about an interview. So I thought this was very interesting. This article is about the interview with Angel M. Sinner. And Angel M. Sinner is the director of the African Studies and Anthropology program in the University of Toledo. She mentions African American, Black, and African studies, interdisciplinary academic fields that study the historical, social, political, and ethic of African and African descended people in the diaspora. She holds an MI in history in the University of Louisiana Loyola and BA from Grambling State University. She is also an active member of several social and academic organizations that work to promote African American history, culture, and community development. So one of the two jobs that I picked for that you couldn't get with the African African Studies major is an ambassador and a social worker. An ambassador task is the primary duties of an ambassador are to maintain diplomatic relations with the receiving state and promote foreign policies, strategies of international organizations. And an ambassador makes 130 to 160 a year. An ambassador is a political job, so I understand why you can major in African studies and become an ambassador. I want to go more into depth to that because I honestly didn't know about African American studies until I got into college. So it's really interesting how you can be more than what you thought with just a degree of African studies. And I think it's important that an ambassador should take even a diversity class or a major because it's very soothing and it can help you look at the world in a different way. I also picked a social worker. Um, the task of a social worker is to help individuals, groups, and families prevent and cope with problems in their everyday lives. Clinically, social workers diagnose and treat mental behavior or emotional problems. The annual salary of a social worker is about 53 to 100 a year. A social worker should have diversity, especially most people that get social workers are African American and Latinos. And I want to go more into depth with that because I can relate to that because I am Latin, like I'm a Latina, and I had a social worker when I was little, and I feel like a lot of people that I knew that were like around me were African American and Latinos, and they also had a social worker. So the fact that I searched this up and it says that more of the people that get social workers are colored people. And it's very like important that social workers need to be diverse, like get diverse training or anything because social workers need to know how to treat and not be biased to the people of color. In conclusion, it is essentially to have African Studies program um and field of study. It's surprising how far this application can carry you. Now that it's finally received the attention it deserves, African Studies is a necessary course for all students since it educates students about a culture that may not be familiar with their struggles and how we may learn from their experiences and then prejudices in the future. And I think it's very important because um, African studies as an experience. When I took I'm taking African studies right now, and I think I've learned so much, like so much history, and it's more of the Black culture, the African American culture, and I've learned so much that I did not learn in my history class, and I'm very proud that I did learn something in my African studies class, and it actually taught me something and information that I'm gonna hold on for like forever and I'm glad that I knew and learned a new cultural that I didn't experience. And it also requires some wisdom. African studies program should be bolstered and kept alive at a all educational institution because of the benefits they provide in terms of diversity, understanding racism, and personal identity. Curriculum requires in African studies include a broad range of topics. It's possible that students who major in African studies can get jobs that can pay the same as low or any up-level career due to their pervasiveness and culture, omission, and bias against persons of African heritage are almost impossible to avoid. African studies as a major is a step in the right way since education is our only weapon against it. And I like to agree on what I'm saying because, or like add on to what I'm saying is because I didn't know that you could be an ambassador. You can be a social worker. Like that's awesome. Like I didn't know that being an African major um can get you so much like up level careers. I didn't even like until I got into college, I didn't even know about African studies. So the fact that you can actually get a good job with something that you love is interesting and can't wait to learn more about it. Um I have 22 seconds, so sorry. I would like to add that as me personally, I have never been biased to anyone. I like to um add a little situation of mine, like my personal situations. Like I never grew up being biased or anything, but I feel like it's because I grew up trying to be more open, more free, more caring. And I think that it's important to have African studies programs because, unlike me, some people may not have the mindset that I have, and it's important that there should be diversity around society. And I think African studies can change the way people think on Black communities and Latin communities. So this is my presentation. Thank you for listening.